What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Tro Bro Dude. And Sam, how was your weekend? What'd you get up to?
Well, then I just kind of chilled. Yeah. Is there anything going on this weekend?
No. Did you enjoy the new Zelda game?
Yeah, no, it's really good. I'm building a lot of things. I'm crucifying Koroks.
Cool.
Put them on a little thing and stuff. So before we hopped on, Trill showed me this little pen. It kind of looked like the one in Men in Black, but
yeah,
it made a big. But yeah, anyway, that's all I can remember is that there was Zelda, a lot of Zelda this weekend. So
that's it. That's all that happened this weekend. There was nothing else that could have possibly happened. So since there was nothing, let's talk about our sponsors from Underdog Fantasy before we get into anything else. God damn, you can tell in my voice that I'm feeling great. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull this up. You can go to Underdog Fantasy and they have pick them in drafts or some shit. I don't know. Fucking look at this. You can pick higher or lower on your favorite players. You use the promo code SLOP. You get a $100 deposit match. That's cool. LeBron James is on here. Anthony Davis. Specifically, Joel Embiid and James Harden not on here. Not on here. You can't pick them because they didn't make it to the fucking conference finals again. You can pick from Jimmy Butler, who was on the Sixers at one point. You can pick from Jason Tatum, who just destroyed the whole fucking team. Jaylen Brown, he killed us early in the series. Marcus Smart, he was great all series. Al Horford shot like 27% as a Sixer and now can't miss as a Celtic. So go on Underdog and make some picks on there and draft some players that are actually in the conference finals and not losers. Not losers, guys that can get to the conference finals, and you can draft them on their fantasy drafts. You can do higher or lower on their points. They're probably going to do a bunch of promos on there for the playoffs. I'm so mad I can't even fucking pick one today because I have just been sulking for 24 hours over this fucking disaster of a Sixers game. So go to Underdog Fantasy and pick from there on the pick'em or the fantasy draft. Use the promo code SLOP. Supports the program. I'm going to kill myself. All right, Anyway. Yeah, yesterday was a fucking disaster. I just want to put you in my frame of mind going into this game.
Mm-hmm.
First thing happened was, so first off, before the game even starts, we get these press leaks on the day of. The first one was by Mark Spears, who wrote about Tobias Harris investing in real estate and small businesses to expand his portfolio. And I was like, oh, this is already off to a horrible, horrible start on the day of a game. So why would you leak this? I don't care if Tobias is a landlord. Well, I do care, but I for other reasons.
Yeah.
And like, it's already known that Sixers fans have hated on Tobias Harris because he got this crazy contract from the team. Not necessarily his fault, but obviously not great timing for that. Then an hour or two later, we get a leak from Woj about the officiating in Game 6 of the Celtics Sixers series, which we did a podcast on that game afterwards. I don't remember any officiating being like overly terrible in that game, to be honest. Like, apparently they missed more calls for the Sixers than they did for the Celtics that Woj tweeted about. That leak specifically, I think a lot of people thought it came from Daryl Morey. We theorize, we actually think it came from Doc Rivers because Doc is the one who was trying to protect his job as the Sixers head coach. But either way, loser vibes from the jump, already making up excuses for potentially losing this game and losing this series. The team shot fucking 23% from 3 in Game 6. They had every opportunity to win that game at home. And all season, I've been saying I felt like this team is different. I've been saying that I felt like this is a new Sixers team that can get over the hump, that can get back to the conference finals if they avoided one matchup, which was the Boston Celtics. They ran into the Celtics. They missed Joel Embiid in the first game, and they won. And then they pushed the series to 7 games. They could have won in 6 at home, like I said. And I'm going to be honest. I do think that, let me put it in context here. I do think that the Sixers team was different. The guys around Joel Embiid were different this year. They had guys that could carry for stretches. The role players came out ready to fucking play in Game 7 yesterday. PJ Tucker proved me wrong. I didn't think we should start him. He hit 11 points in the first quarter. DeAnthony Melton was everywhere defensively. Blocks, steals, playing great defense on basically everyone but Jason Tatum, but who wasn't? It didn't matter what we did with Jason Tatum yesterday. He was absolutely destroying the whole fucking team. And then in addition to that, once again, Tobias Harris was dunking the ball in transition. He had a layup in transition, things that he has not been able to do this whole fucking series. Maxey showed up. Everyone seemed locked in, engaged from the jump, except for Joel Embiid and James Harden. And the thing that I have said over and over and over again in this series is this team's going to go as far as Joel Embiid can take them. Harden has his horrible, horrible games sometimes. He had 4 in this series, and we lost all 4 of those games. He had 1 decent game and 2 great games. And you're just not going to win when your 2 best players, especially with how Joel Embiid performed over the last 5 quarters of this series, you're just not going to win those series if you have them just looking lackadaisical from the tip-off. Like, it wasn't even like he was tired in the second half, like when he came back from injury. And it wasn't even like he was disengaged when the game was out of hand. It was in the first quarter we were on the stream like, what the fuck is Joel doing? Defensively, he didn't look engaged. Offensively, he was sloppy. He was throwing up bricks. He had barely had any rebounds in the first half. And the team went on a run when he went to the bench, which is never, ever the case. He gets put back in. The Celtics go on a run of their own to make it up 3 points at halftime. And it's looking like a game, but you could tell the direction the game was headed in. You came in at halftime during our stream, and I was like, this is not good because we know how our stars play. Our stars don't play like Jason Tatum did in Game 6, where he can be doo-doo ass for 3 quarters and then a superstar in the fourth. They're always vibes-based. They're always, you can tell their effort level from the jump. And both Joel Embiid and James Harden played like total dog shit in the biggest game in Sixers. But honestly, most of the last 2 games, which were the biggest Sixers games since 2001. And until either Joel figures out whatever his playoff shit is, or they can somehow hope that Tyrese Maxey becomes this all-star level player who can create his own offense in the playoffs, you're just going to see the same fucking results over and over and over again. And it is very frustrating to me because I have been saying all series, this team's going to go as far as Joel Embiid can take them. I've been saying it for a while now, and people give me shit all the time for criticizing Joel. This is why I criticize him, dude. Like, the 2 biggest games, we need you to show up, and you don't show up for the last 5 quarters of the games. And this is just so fucking frustrating when it felt like this team really had a chance to win the championship. I would say their best chance since 2018, 2019. And he sold with the game on the line, with the series on the line, with the season on the line. And I don't want to hear a thing about the refs. I don't want to hear a thing about Doc Rivers. I don't want to hear a thing about any of the role players. Your best player needs to take the fucking ball, take the game into his hands like Jason Tatum did yesterday. Someone who we have also criticized for being up and down, but he showed up when it mattered most. And that's kind of my whole thing on this. So rant over. I'm pissed because I felt like they blew a perfect opportunity with 2 fucking games. They couldn't win 1 game after the Celtics tried to hand it to them over and over and over again throughout this whole series. And the Celtics were the better team. And the Celtics are the better team. But it doesn't mean they were going to win the series. So that's my rant. That's how I feel. I feel really fucking frustrated because I've been trying to stay engaged and I've been trying to stay on top of this team and make sure that this wasn't going to be like other years and hope that it was different. But ultimately, it does turn out to be different. And the only reason why is because the star player, specifically the MVP of the league, didn't fucking show up during the biggest moments. Done.
He's done it, folks. I thought I don't know. I feel like this is not a space for me to be in. I do not. I feel like anything I do, I can hear the listeners hissing and booing. I want me thrown off a cliff. I mean, let me can I at least try to take a crack at silver linings? I do think this Sixers team was different in a lot of ways than like previous Sixers teams. I mean, this was not a 5-game loss to the hospital Celtics. This wasn't losing to the Hawks or the Miami Heat or anything like this. This was a 7-game slugfest against like what I think is the best team in the NBA still. Like
the championship favorites.
Yes. And I mean, yes, like the Celtics were also like pooping their pants, and that's got to be like very frustrating, like to lose when that door is open. But I also, it's not like, it's not like the Sixers didn't make progress. Like I know that they lost in the second round again, but like all the other stuff has been like injuries and stuff. This was like a matchup against the team. We've said this over and over and over again that like the Celtics are also just a nightmare matchup for the Sixers. Like if I had told you like, I don't know, in like January or something, like the Sixers lose in 7 to the Celtics, like I think you would have been disappointed, but you would have been like, oh,
I picked the Celtics to win in 6, and that was with me having hope that Joel would barely miss any of the series. Like you're right. You're totally right. Yeah. You're 100% right when it comes to the context of everything.
Yes.
But it's impossible to remove the historical context of what Joel has done in the playoffs past the first round, what Harden has done at times in the playoffs, what honestly, people are giving Doc a bunch of shit. I thought Doc was great in this series. I genuinely can't hold anything against him. Like, we won game 1 without our best player. We won game 5, which was the most pivotal game that we've had. We came back in game 4. Like, once again, I thought the Celtics were the better team, and they were the favorites for a reason. It's not like fucking we were really anticipated to win this series at all. Like, I can't put that at the feet of the coach when the second best player on the team is sometimes the worst player on the court for games. And then Joel, while he has his 2 and 3/4 games where he looks awesome, like he did in game 4 and game 5, he also has this level, this ceiling to his game in the playoffs that is frustrating when you're completely reliant on him carrying your team and carrying your offense. So once again, I understand, like, my rational, logical brain can say, I never thought they were going to beat the Celtics. My fan brain, I've been sitting through this shit for 6 fucking years, and the team had the best opportunity that they've had in years with the best team that they've had in years, and they blew 2 straight games, specifically that game 6. Game 7 was like a pathetic performance, and like I didn't feel great heading into it anyway until the first quarter happened, and I was like, okay, if PJ Tucker's scoring 11 points, that might be an omen that like we're here to hang in this game at the very least. But the game 6 performance is really where they just let everything go. That's where that collapse down the stretch of that game where they couldn't hit a fucking shot. Like, someone said to me, should we just fire Daryl Morey because apparently his historical luck with shooting in the playoffs is just like it's like game 7 was on everyone. Like, it was just mainly the stars, but like it was it was a lot of bad, terrible things from our best players. The game 6 was literally like good 3-point shooters just missing wide open shots, which is once again the Daryl Morey thing. Like, you lean into variance, you're going to have that happen sometimes. The Celtics had it happen to them in game 5 of this series where they shot in the 20s. The Sixers had it happen to them in game 6 of this series where they shot in the 20s. But ultimately, you're totally right on all these things. But my thing is, like, what you talked about last time was like the storybook ending. And like, I've had a few people say that to me, like Joel finally getting over the hump, beating the Celtics, them facing Miami with Jimmy, who left the team, who now is in his 3rd conference finals in 4 years since leaving the team. Great. And then Jokic potentially in the finals, or at the very least, Anthony Davis, who has also been kind of a rival of Embiid's throughout his career, and really a chance to rewrite your story and your legacy and all that shit. And it ended in that fourth quarter in game 6 because he didn't touch the ball the last 3 minutes of the game. He missed both shots he took in the last 5 minutes of that game. And then game 7, it was like you let a good team hang around long enough and you survive the Jason Tatum shit doo-doo ass game from game 6, you're going to eventually, that's going to regress. And that I didn't think he was going to score fucking 51 points, but you're going to get a star performance from one of their guys, and then the role players will all fall into place and everything will click on their end. You're giving them the opportunity. They gave them the opportunity so many fucking times. And it feels like the same old story because it's like the other team just had a player who rose to the occasion and the Sixers didn't. Like Jimmy did last year, Kawhi did in 2019. The original Hospital Celtics one was more like a collective effort, I would say. But like even in the bubble, like Tatum outplayed Embiid in that series. Like plenty of guys have outplayed him in these later these bigger playoff matchups.
The bubble one, that one was just like a cut and dry. Like the Sixers were just undermanned. Like that was like I don't even really count.
We shot as a team, I think we shot like 30% from 3 in that whole series. I literally think Shake Milton was the only one that shot over 35% from 3. Tobias shot like 20%. Josh Richardson, like everyone was terrible. But yeah, long story short on this, it's because now we talked about the weight of this game, right? And the weight of these two games and how they will dictate either the Celtics' future or the Sixers' future. And I talked about why there's more pressure on the Sixers because you have James Harden's pending free agency. You have Doc Rivers potentially on the chopping block. Whereas the Celtics stuff was like a little bit more, they had more flexibility. They could solve some shit. And you had the opportunity to really kind of handicap a team that is going to be in your way for winning a title in this East. And now, like, if you stack up all the teams in the East right now, the Celtics, the Bucks, the Heat, the Sixers are very clearly the fourth team in terms of playoff success, in terms of playoff viability. Currently, like moving forward, let's say. Yeah. Like the Heat have been to multiple conference finals. The Bucks have been to multiple conference finals. They've won a title. You guys have got to the finals. They've got to the finals. The Sixers have not. And until the Sixers get to a conference finals or a finals, and like that's removing the fact that like I think Cleveland's going to be better next year. I think Orlando's going to be better next year. The Knicks have a chance to make a splash this summer. Like you're now looking at a summer that is literally like I think it's over already, if I'm just going to be completely honest. And I know I'm not supposed to say that because it's like I think that they blew their shot. I think they missed their window. Having said that, moving forward, this is really your last chance to salvage anything that could be remotely rememberable of this era other than the Joel Embiid winning MVP. If you can somehow nail this offseason, you can figure out some way around some shit, and you can come back next year and do something. But like it's very much up to what Daryl Morey does this offseason, and your margin for error is nothing now. You've already had a thin margin for error because you've sent all the assets out the door to make this team. But now you literally have to nail this, or we're looking at a situation where a year from now we're probably trading Joel Embiid. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. I don't think he's going to ask out this summer, but I think after that performance, he's going to want to try to redeem himself and redeem the team next year and hope that Maxey grows. And I think Harden's gone. I don't know, honestly. But this really feels like you blew your fucking shot, and now you have to completely regroup this offseason and then go into next year and hope that you either get some injury luck or you just you get that Maxey star leap or whatever it is, and like now your margin for error is nothing. You have to do something.
Yeah, I mean, this is Joel has 3 years left on his contract and then a 4th-year player option. So, second to last year is when that's when the trade stuff comes. So
yep.
Got like 1 more year. You've got a $40 million expiring contract for Tobias Harris, which in previous years would be like, so what? I do think there's a little bit of value, not necessarily value to that, but if you want to like move some stuff around, like nobody has any cap space right now. Like, so if other people want to move around stuff, there are guys, teams like the Phoenix Suns, like the Golden State Warriors, those types of teams are trying to move large amounts of money and might be trying to move multiple guys. So, this isn't like in previous years where like Tobias, if you wanted to move on from him, like that was just a total non-starter with how big his contract is. Like, he has an expiring deal, and there are enough giant contracts out there that like this could, Daryl is like a cap sheet guy and a dork and a nerd. So like he could move some of this stuff around, depending on what happens with James Harden. And like, there's a lot of good guys still on this team, like under contract, like Maxey, most noticeable, like, and Melton are probably the two most important ones. PJ Tucker, although he's getting a little bit older. I mean, that's a pretty like strong foundation of your team. And just given, I know James Harden like did a lot for the team, but like, I wonder if, given how he performs in the playoffs, I wonder if it's not the worst thing in the world to have Tyrese Maxey kind of step up and just like, let's take the training wheels off and see what we got at this point,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's kind of how you have to look at it. Yeah, it's funny because I'm trying to balance the Harden thing where I'm like, he was somehow the worst player on the court during the 4 losses, but also if he doesn't have that game 1, game 4, they probably get swept, or they lose in 5 at a minimum. Like maybe they steal game 4 still, but like, I don't know. It feels like he was somehow so important, but also so detrimental to their success. And I mean, it was basically every game you can point out and say he was the success and the failure, but it's less about like what we see in the numbers and what we've seen throughout the history with Harden in the playoffs. And it's more about, he's not getting any younger. And also you saw you're going to have to pay him a lot of money. And you saw in that game 7, like, dude, the thing that worries me the most is like him and Joel both seem kind of shook in a way that like Tyrese Maxey's 22 and he wasn't. And like Harden had multiple plays yesterday where he's driving to the rim and there was either a wide open layup and he kicked it to the corner. Like they were giving him the layup, hoping that they could recover and block him at the rim. He was afraid to take layups. He was kicking it to the corner, or he was dribbling it. Like he dribbled it like almost over his head multiple times. Like I was like, what is happening? And now you have this decision with Harden where like, apparently this is, did you see what Ramona Shelburne said?
No.
So she said what she thinks is going to happen is that so everything that we've heard from Woj, the Rockets are a real possibility, all this shit.
Yeah.
I've always said, first off, it is a real threat. We've learned every time these fucking things happen.
Yeah.
You talked about it with the Kyrie thing with the Celtics.
Yeah.
There have been so many times where guys are connected to teams and everyone denies it, and then it happens. Yeah. So I do think it is a real possibility. I think that Harden might say, we missed our shot and I just want to go play and live in Houston again. But she basically said what we've kind of been theorizing, which is that she doesn't see James Harden back in Philly if Doc Rivers is still the coach. And that's the thing that is going to be interesting here, because if some team tries to pry Doc Rivers away, I don't think the Sixers are going to be like, no.
Throw their body in front of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think last year what happened with the Lakers was it came down to Darvin Ham, and then maybe they were interested in Doc Rivers. And the Sixers were like, okay, if you'll take Doc Rivers, like we will gladly get off his contract, essentially, because they pay Doc a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to tell people, if they are to move on from Doc and they just buy him out of his contract, which not even buying out, they just have to pay the rest of his 2 years left on his deal, he makes $8 million a year. And you know what the team that just dodged the tax isn't going to do? Pay 2 coaches at once that make real salaries. Like, you're not getting Nick Nurse or Mike Budenholzer or Monty Williams. You're getting
Charles Lee.
What's that?
You're getting Charles Lee, and
I was going to say, you're getting what the Celtics got with Udoka last year, or you're getting someone that is a new first-time head coach that's looking for an opportunity. Now, maybe you can upgrade from within and like promote Sam Cassell or whatever, but like Sam Cassell's interviewed for 100 jobs in the NBA and college basketball all over the place, and he has never once gotten a job. So it's possible that he's just not really a good head coaching candidate. The players seem to like him, but I don't really know. So the Harden thing seems like it is kind of tied to the Doc thing, where if Doc's back, Harden's gone. If Harden's gone, Doc might be back. I'm fully fine with them keeping Doc. I don't think that Doc was the problem once again.
No,
and
no.
I like after game 5, I was like, Doc's coached a great series. Like I really can't get mad at it. And like Steph No tweeted, the journalist tweeted a video of like, you can't put the defensive shit on Doc from yesterday. They tried like 10 different things with Tatum, and it didn't really matter. He was just, they put multiple guys on him. They hedged, they blitzed them. They did everything. They switched, they did what, and Tatum was just getting whatever he wanted. So like Doc tried to make adjustments. They didn't work. And Doc tried different things. He pulled the right lever sometimes, throwing Daniel House out there in one game. George Niang played fucking great in this series somehow. And like, I once again don't think Doc is the problem. And like, I think that if anything, the only reason that you would move on from Doc Rivers after a loss like this is if there are multiple veteran guys in the locker room, like Joel and PJ, who agree with James Harden, who say, yeah, maybe it's time to get a new voice in here. Maybe it's time to get someone else that could, you know, have a different plan, like run a different style offense. Like that's the one thing that people have really been criticizing, is that the Sixers offense is like super ISO heavy. When the pick and roll isn't there, they really don't have any go-to bread and butter options. But like, I kind of think that was more a result of just the Celtics figuring them out over the course of a series and having better defensive lineups out there to deal with that, especially when you guys went to double bigs. But long story short here, it's like one of James Harden or Doc Rivers is going to be gone here. And I'm kind of leaning towards just letting James Harden walk, hoping that Maxey can become the guy he can be, and then trying to reshape the team next year, because I know people will just not be interested in the team next year. And by the way, I can't blame a single person. If you don't follow the podcast, if you want to check out, I get it, dude. If I didn't have to do this, I wouldn't be doing this right now. It drives me insane just as much as it drives you insane. So like, I'm kind of at the point where I think that letting James Harden go, if Houston wants to give him a max contract, best of luck, dude. Because I just can't imagine giving $50 million a year to a guy who you're just not going to know what you get on any given night. Like, he can be amazing and he can also be terrible. And it's like, it's hard to get that, especially when you're concerned already about, with the Sixers specifically, is that you kind of get that from your best player as well. And like, all things considered, I appreciate what James did for the team. I think he lifted up Joel and made Joel a better player. I think that he helped Maxey kind of in his role and all that shit. But like, it's probably just better for both sides if he ends up moving on.
Got you guys off the Ben Simmons grenade. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, but did you see Ben Simmons post the Instagram? I was like, the lack of awareness on this dude to post that when this team swept your team last year when you didn't play at all.
You literally couldn't play, brother. Like,
and then you got swept by them by the Sixers this year, and you didn't play. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah. It's I don't know. Like,
someone said it was the ultimate I know that ain't who I think it is moment.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I get that we're going to see if his back is actually hurt. Apparently, Michael Porter Jr., who, by the way, always has good information. All of the information that he has is great. He says that it was the same back surgery he had, and it takes 2 years to come back from it. So,
yeah.
All right. If you're going to be tweeting like that, Ben Simmons, you better be
comeback season.
You better be back next year, or brother, you're in trouble. He's not really in trouble. I mean, he's living in Brooklyn, New York, as a multimillionaire. Like, he's one.
Yeah. So, by the way, I don't know if there were multiple things today about this Harden back to Houston thing. I don't know if you saw.
I saw a couple, yeah.
Yeah. Zach Lowe and Tim McMahon basically have both said Houston's like, yeah, he's coming back. Like, I think that the The lottery is tomorrow night. By the way, you can watch the lottery with me on playback. If you have any reason to live right now and you want to just come watch me see what teams are going to get Victor Wembanyama, that would be very cool. But he basically said, multiple people basically said the Sixers have been denying it, but the Sixers have multiple plans to pivot away from Harden if he leaves, because the Tobias thing is the big thing. Because I tweeted and I said, hey, are there any cap nerds out there that could help me figure this out? And I know you're good with cap stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out so you said there aren't many teams with cap space, but there are a few.
There's a couple.
OKC has cap space again. Not Golden State. Houston, obviously, but Houston doesn't really help the Sixers because they're gonna.
I can tell you teams with 30 million, more than 30 million in cap space. The Hornets, the Pistons, the Thunder, the Jazz, the Spurs, the Magic, and the Rockets. And then there's some teams on the edge of wiggle room, like the Lakers, Pacers, and Kings, but they're probably bringing back their guys. So
exactly
some of their guys. So
I was going to say the only teams that you mentioned there that if you're trying to get off the Tobias Harris contract, and maybe there's a team that likes Jaden Springer, who you drafted 2 years ago, and is still 21 years old. He won G League Finals MVP. He showed some flashes in the last Sixers regular season game, playing great defense on Trae Young. He's certainly going to probably be a rotation level NBA player at the very minimum. And he is the guy that you're probably looking at to try to get off that Tobias Harris contract. Because right now you don't really have any picks. You might be able to unprotect your 29 pick if you want to get really crazy and throw that out there, but Morey doesn't generally do that kind of stuff. But you can move Tobias Harris. If James Harden walks, you move Tobias Harris. You somehow get off the Furkan Korkmaz contract that's still there somehow. You can get to 50 to 55 million in cap space. And you'd still have Paul Reed and Jalen McDaniels with low cap hits. So to my knowledge, maybe you could help me with this better.
Yeah.
If they were to somehow go out there and move on from Tobias and Jaden Springer, and they got off the Furkan Korkmaz guy, let's just say hypothetically all this shit.
Okay.
Is there any way that they could bring back, if they do order of operations, could they bring back Paul Reed and McDaniels at let's say they each make $8 million a year next year or something, and then still have access to that cap space? Because they wouldn't have to eat into the cap space to retain those guys if they have their bird rights, right?
I believe so. I'm looking up their cap holds right now.
They're very low. Jalen McDaniels is 1.8 and Paul's is 3.5.
Yeah, his is his qualifying offer is 2.2. I think his cap holds is this. I don't think these numbers are right that I'm looking at, because I think it would be 3.3, something like that. So
it is.
You're talking about $5 million. I mean, hey, if you can do it, I guess I'm just kind of skeptical that you can actually get off Tobias Harris contract for no assets isn't expiring. What I'm thinking about is more something like a halfway pivot move where, again, it's something like this and Jaden Springer. It's Tobias and Jalen Springer for Cody Martin and Terry Rozier.
I was going to say something like Gordon Hayward and Cody Martin or something like that.
Yeah. So, something where it's is it very exciting? No. But could it be a more balanced way to set up your team with Maxey kind of waiting in the wings and looking like he's ready for a bigger role, if you do have a little bit more defensive specialty, I don't know, you got a Martin twin in there.
Let's go. The other one's working out great for the Heat. I watched him look like fucking LeBron James against the Knicks in the one game.
I think the Martins are good. I think they're both good. Honestly, I thought Cody was the better one until Caleb went on this run with the Heat. So.
I know. When we talked about this a year ago, when we were talking about pending free agents, Parm was saying that the market inefficiency is just signing the worst twin. And he was he's like, genetically, they're the same guy. So you sign Robin Lopez, you sign Caleb Martin, and they might end up being good.
You draft Asar Thompson.
Exactly.
You heard it here first. You heard it first. YKB.
Number one market efficiency. Exactly.
Yeah, we're in on Asar Thompson. This is if you draft him 8th, he's good. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be. I mean, yeah, because they have a ton of second round guys. That is one of the big inefficiencies. I'm trying to remember because there is sometimes like a little bit of a weird rule with them, but I think all of those guys have been on the team for 3 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Then if they've been on the team more than 3 years, yeah, you're going to be fine there. And yeah, so that's going to be like $5 million. So you would have cap space. Now the problem is,
okay, so here's the thing. McDaniels hasn't been on, but we got his rights because he was already on the Hornets for multiple years. And Reed has been on the team for 3 years now. And yeah.
So those guys, I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure the cap hits, I think they would be pretty small. That's why the second round picks are like so important, because it's like usually 1.5 times whatever your previous salary was. So I just think the problem is that you run into there though is it's like, okay, but now what are you doing with that cap space? Because are you interested in Chris Middleton?
Let's say best case scenario for the Sixers is that they are somehow a team's like, you know what, fuck it, we'll take a year on Tobias. Maybe we could bring him back at a lower cap hit the next year for like 15 million or whatever, and he can be like, the Spurs are just like, fuck it, who cares? We like Jaden Springer, we'll take on the contract and we'll see if we can bring back Tobias at a lower clip, and he'll be like the veteran locker room guy for a year. We're not doing anything anyway. We're the fucking Spurs. So let's just hypothetically say best case scenario that happens. This is with James Harden leaving. Because if you bring back James Harden, I keep saying everyone's saying, oh, dump Tobias. That's a scenario where you have to look at getting the Terry Rozier or Cody Martin style packages back. Because that's a scenario where you have no road to cap space. If James Harden comes back, your cap space is gone. That's it. So there is no cap space. You're barely going to even have any, you'll have your MLE, but like, that's it. And like the team would have to spend a lot of fucking money if they'd even be willing to do that. And with the new rules, it's going to get really complicated with the taxpayer shit. And
if you bring James Harden back on his max, like you're already
the tax. Yeah, you're fucked. You don't even get we might not even get the taxpayer mid-level.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You might even be at the second apron at that point.
Yeah.
Like, because you would be at about 180 million at that
point. It's a lot of fucking money. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like you sacrifice all of your flexibility to run it back with the same team. Maybe you could move Tobias for a rotation player, for 2 rotation players or whatever. So there's that plan. But let's say we move away from that and there's a perfect best case scenario where Harden, in the case of Harden walking, where Harden walks, you send out, and everyone's like, oh, this free agency class sucks. And I'm like, I don't disagree. I don't think that the free agency class is great. There are some guys you could take some swings on, for sure. Austin Reeves is one from the Lakers. They're not going to be able to bring him back, probably. He's definitely going to make more than 4 years, $50 million. Kyle Kuzma is another one. Jeremy Grant. There are guys that if you blow them away with $30 million offers and the chance to compete on possibly a better team for a guy like Kuzma, and you could be in the ballpark for some of these guys. Once again, we come back to the same problem, which is if Maxey doesn't make the leap, none of this matters. Like if Maxey isn't the guy next year, he's never going to be the level of playmaker that James Harden is. He's probably going to be he's definitely not going to be the same level of ball handler as James Harden, but you're just hoping that he complements everything else so well and that you can put the right pieces around Joel to keep the team competitive, to keep the window at least slightly cracked open. But like, if we run it back with Harden, I'm just like, I feel like it's just going to be the same exact movie over and over and over. And like, we kind of already know, like, once again, maybe with better health luck for Joel, how many times have we said that? It's like, this is his 4th time, 5th time in 6 years, 4th time. I think the only year he never had an injury was the bubble year. And that was a very unique scenario that just doesn't happen. And it's hard for him to balance the injuries and staying in shape. That's been the thing. And I've had multiple people reach out to me like, why does he look so tired in these fourth quarters? Like, he's in year 8 or 10. Like, why is he still have these issues? And I'm like, he gets injured all the time. And he's talked about it publicly. If I'm injured, I can't play for 2 weeks. I can try to stay in shape, but nothing is going to get me ready for playing in a playoff game. Blah, 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 blah. This feels like the only way that you bring back James Harden is if Joel is like, I want to try it for one more year, and you just say fuck it, and then hope that a year from now, if Joel asks out, you can move the Harden contract to somewhere else, like Houston.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's like part of the thing. Like, it's so hard to project what's going to happen because it does seem like I think we both agree that it seems like I would put it at like 80% that Harden's going back to Houston. Would you have it that high or?
Yeah, I think we had to make the conference finals for him to come back, to be honest. Like, I think that he had it in his head, like he said at the press conference, same thing as last year. We lost in the second round. Like it's not an improvement. Like, even if we took a better team to another game and we didn't have Joel for one game this year instead of 2 games last year, but like, I think he views it as a failure. Like, everyone should view this season as a failure.
Well, but the other thing is, like, I don't want to get psychoanalyzing James Harden, but the fact that he's considering going back to Houston kind of makes me think that winning is not what's most important to him. Like, and,
yeah, I mean, we're sitting here on Monday, May 15th, and if DeAnthony Melton or PJ Tucker hit 2 more threes in Game 6, we could be talking about the Sixers with a path to the NBA championship.
Yes.
And a few things go in the other direction, and we could be talking about something completely different today, which is something that is sparing that they get Victor Wembanyama, by the way.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's the exception.
That's essentially what it is. That's why
they get Victor Wembanyama, different conversation. I think they're going to be contenders pretty quickly within 2 or 3 years. But if they don't get Victor Wembanyama, a lot of teams could say the same fucking thing. If they don't get Victor Wembanyama, they're probably going to be a worse team than the Sixers will be in the next 2 years, regardless of outcomes of playoff series.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that just the issue, I guess, like, I'm not even really trying to like kill Harden for like his life choice. Like, who cares? You know, he's 34. Like, if you want to just go chill out where you're popular, like, that's fine. You know, like, I don't think that's that big of a deal, but I'd like, let's not pretend like he like is seeing the diamonds in the rough or something like
Sure.
in Houston, you know, like he's going back there for a comfort reason, which again, it's fine. But I guess
I'm going to be, maybe I'm being too much of a fan brain here.
Yeah.
You could make the argument for Harden and Embiid that they're both running from the grind.
Yeah.
Like, Harden going back to Houston and Embiid seeing the situation for what it is right now and not even considering asking for a trade or a change up, both in different ways are like kind of like settling for what I view as inevitable, which is like a good regular season team. I've been joking. I'm like, fire Doc, bring in Mike Budenholzer, trade Tobias to New York for Julius Randle. Let's win 60 games and lose in the first round next year.
I mean, well, here's just to like defend Joel real quick. I mean, I do think part of that is I do think Joel really does like care about the city and the fans, and like
we're gonna strike on that last. I'm telling you, I'm just being real. This is not Portland. People are mean here, dude. Like, this is not like people won't sit around and wait forever if you're not making it to the conference final. And even they made it to the conference finals one time. Like, that's the thing.
I get it. And, you know, maybe that wears Joel down. Yeah. But I think Joel was like, I think Joel trying to make it work is coming from a place of like, I want to make this work. You know what I'm saying? Because
he wants to do the Dirk thing, which is what Dame wants. And yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you know, and I find his version of it like I know Dame technically went further, but I find his version way more possible and appealing than whatever the fuck Dame is trying to do out there. Like, that's a fucking pipe dream. Like, that has been a pipe dream. They got the absolute best case scenario, and got swept in the conference finals. Like,
and also in fairness to, I still think that despite not making it as far, that the 18-19 team and this year's team had a better shot at the championship if they're able to overcome those second round woes that they've had, as opposed to Portland, who never really had a chance at winning a championship.
We're talking about two different times where it's looking like they're going to lose in 7 games to the eventual NBA champion. Like,
yeah,
you're by definition you're close at that point. Like,
it's so frustrating to meet in the second round every time.
It sucks. I really do think the Sixers are just kind of like unlucky. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that like I don't know. Sixers fans like to point to the like process shit as like where they were unlucky. I don't think that's true. I think that is part of the drafting thing is you draft Julio Okafor sometimes like that, like that's built into it. Like, but
the reason why you did the process was because you wanted to try to have as many shots at it as possible.
Yeah. Like there's, and Joel, like there's some stuff that goes wrong. Like the Colangelo thing, that's a disaster. But like really what we're talking about is a shot bouncing around the rim 3 times through Nick Nurse satanic magic and them.
Hey, that's future Sixers head coach Nick Nurse.
Yeah, Sixers head coach. or the Celtics, or just running into your absolute foil again in the second round. And it happening.
Yeah, in 20 years, I think if the Celtics win the finals this year, in 20 years we'll always look back at this and be like, "Fuck, we missed our shots." But the Heat and the Hawks series is really what we're gonna regret, because the Heat and the Hawks series, I do genuinely think the Sixers were the better teams in those series. I think that they were the underdogs in the Raptors and the Celtics series for good reason. I think that those teams are very good championship level worthy teams. They fucked up in their 2 chances that they had, and there's a ton of moving pieces on why it could all be that. But like a superstar performance here or there might have swayed the balance, and that's what Sixers fans are frustrated with Joel. It's like we're year 6 of this, and like you really haven't had your signature playoff moment, and you're too good not to have it.
Well, and that's I guess that's the thing that sucks about this one is I actually think this is the best the Sixers have ever done in the playoffs, but it's not that way because it's because this is more, I mean, blasphemy, but like when you guys lost to the Raptors, that Raptors team still needed an insane amount of luck, like in injuries with the Warriors, with what happened to the Warriors to win the title. I think this Celtics team could win the title, and everyone would be like, yeah, well, like nobody
was the best team most of the season. Like you had the best net rating.
Yeah. Best net rating in the league. A team that has, been in the conference finals 4 out of the last 5 years or whatever the fuck it is. Like, it is what it is. Like, I think that the Sixers are improving slowly, but it's just like, you run out of time at a certain point,
That's like, we've always talked about this is like, you have your windows and Morey always talks about like the windows being smaller than you think it is for most teams.
Yeah.
And how there's for all these teams that we've discussed, there's always been some sort of thing that look, everything involves luck. Some of it involves timing, where the Raptors waited all those years to make their move because LeBron was in the East. And it was like, this fucking LeBron is in the East. We're never going to beat LeBron. So we might as well not. And then you get the Kawhi, you take the risk with the Kawhi trade. The Bucks circumstance was, they needed to hit rock bottom against the Heat and go out and make the Drew Holiday trade, even though Drew's had his own struggles in the playoffs to get and getting him and PJ Tucker made their team better. And then Giannis rose up to the occasion, despite the fact that they got insane health luck in that net series and they make the run to the finals. Like you have to have a combination of luck from an injury standpoint, from a timing standpoint, from all these things kind of meeting perfectly. And once again, I do think that the Sixers kind of blew their chance. I think that this was probably the last chance they had a real chance to win the NBA Finals. Now, can they make it to a conference finals? Sure. Can they win multiple playoff rounds? Yes. Like that's definitely something that they can do. But like, I kind of am just at a point where it's like either make crazy moves this summer with bringing in a new coach or trying to get rid of Tobias Harris, or fucking making something with the space that you lose with James Harden or whatever. Make a splash, do something, because you can't keep selling the same recycled shit over and over and over again and expect the fans to just take it. Like that's the thing. And even though it was the best version, like the league's getting better. Like everyone's getting better all the time. So like you need to stay up with that. You need to stay ahead of the curve in terms of what you can do to make your team the best. But all of this is like, I've been ranting and raving about this shit for almost an hour now. I want to talk a little bit just about like, I guess the implications of everything that's been happening around the league. Like the Sixers are kind of in the middle of it right now with Doc Rivers, obviously. Monty Williams was fired over the weekend. It's crazy. Bud was just the coaches of the year. 4 of the last 5 coaches of the year have now been fired in the NBA. The only one that is still left is somehow Thibs in New York, who like might get fired. I don't know. Maybe he stays.
What if Kerr leaves? Like that's not like a sure thing.
Yeah,
I think everything's on the table there. Like if Bob Myers wants to go podcast or whatever the fuck, like
podcast about success with J. Cole.
That's what Grind said or whatever the fuck his show is about. Like
he's leaving for Vayner Media.
I don't know. I just think it's weird. Like I think what the situation the Warriors and the Bucks are in are just a lot more grim to me than like what the Sixers are in, for example. Like or some of these other teams. Like I think it's kind of getting overblown because I know it's jarring when a guy like leaves for nothing, but it's not the damaging like be all end all if you still got a like some sort of star. I mean, it happened 3 times to the Celtics in 2 years, and they went to the conference finals again. You know, and I get that they had like young guys, but like when guys leave and they're old and like not that. You know, James Harden was still an all-star and he's like had a crack at like all NBA and all this other stuff. But like you watch that series unfold and kind of like how some of this stuff went. And I don't know. I don't think the Sixers are done. I don't think the Bucks are bulletproof. I think we're really just talking about like the Celtics and, you know, I don't think the Cavs are there yet. I think the Heat are going to get their trachea stomped in by the Celtics here, and that's going to be the end of that team. But I pray to God, like I'm going to.
Are you doubting the Devil Magic again?
I want to bury the Devil Magic. I've never wanted a series more in my life. I tweeted this out today. I would rather lose to Jokic in a long series in the finals than have this series go 7 and win the finals. I want this team dead. I want
shoot him in between the eyes.
I want a 4-game sweep. I want 20 points each time. I hate this team so goddamn much. I want to put them in the ground. I hate the fucking Heat.
Just from a pure competitive standpoint, though, I bet you look the league. Once again, I think the league is fine with the Final 4 teams. I'm sure they're going to be fine with whatever the finals matchup is. They probably want it to be Celtics Lakers for eyeballs' sake, but I do think that there is at least a part of the league that's like, man, the Heat Sixers would have been a competitive series. Like the Sixers have, like Harden could just come out and be terrible, and Embiid could be terrible in any given game, and then every game is a dogfight. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. Whereas I know Celtics have doo-doo mode, and we always talk about like they shouldn't have let the Sixers hang. They always let teams hang.
The difference is the Sixers are a good team.
I know that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like
the talent gap is way too big for you guys to not win this series in anything less than like 6.
Yeah, I would say 6 is like the absolute worst. Like if this goes to a game 7, I will be a hazard. Like everyone will like I will be in the paper if this goes to 7. Like this is like I smell blood in the water like with this series. I want this series so bad. I really don't care what happens in the finals. Maybe I'll change my tune after that, but I want to sweep this team so bad. I've never wanted a series result more in my life. But anyway, I got off topic. My point here was that the East is actually going to go back to being somewhat open. until like Luka won't be on the Knicks yet. Like there is a little bit of a like
the Knicks are monitoring Joel Embiid and Giannis, so they're getting Luka.
I don't think that timing is right.
I was going to say, I had people saying, well, if Joel asks out now, stack every fucking pick you can get and just wait until Luka's available.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think. I don't think that. I don't think that timing lines up. I think the Heat are probably more likely to make a trade for Joel if you were to ask out than the Knicks.
Sure, I think so.
they have.
And I think Joel would want to go there because he loves Jimmy.
Yeah, I think that would.
God, that would be the worst.
God, can you imagine Joel getting in shape under that fascist training program?
I mean, come on. We already know exactly how this is going to go. I needed to get to a better culture fit, a coach that understood me, back with Jimmy. My body feels good in the weather down here. We got this great training program. I'm in great shape. Jimmy can run the offense sometimes. I can run the offense sometimes. They got me running dribble handoffs with their white shooters. Like, it would drive me. I would be going insane, dude. I would be losing my mind. And every Sixers fan would be like, yay, go Joel. And I would be like, I can't believe they're getting away with this.
Yeah. This is why we need to end that franchise.
Yes.
God's righteous warriors. Look, if you hate the Celtics, look, I hate them too a lot of the time. We can agree on this. They can lose in the finals. You guys can watch Jason Tatum be sad again. I need this one. I need the Miami Heat. I need that franchise with the ground.
Sixers fans will definitely be rooting for the Heat because they're still mad we let Jimmy go. The Bulls and the Sixers have that in common in that they are still mad at the owners for letting Jimmy out the door. Yeah. So they're going to root for Jimmy's team. Having said that, it is going to be interesting to see what happens here. Because if the Lakers make it, I don't think Sixers fans really care about the Lakers. The Lakers, we've never really had a rivalry with them in my lifetime. We lost to them once in the finals, but they were the best team.
I think it's more just about, like, in general, the Lakers. Because, like, I just think about the teams that you guys would hate the most. I think, like, the Heat and the Celtics have been, like, your maybe the Bucks would be in there, but, like,
I don't really think. I think it's Heat and Celtics. I would imagine, but not as much heat for the Heat because they made our owners look stupid, which is what we like because we hate the owners so much. But back to that, if you're purely an Embiid guy and you're purely, by the way, that argument's kind of over now. I'm sorry, Sixers fans. I think it's kind of over right now. Jokic has been the best player in the playoffs. We'll see how he performs in the Western Conference Finals. But long story short here, if you're purely an Embiid guy, you're purely a process guy, and you want Jokic, if he gets to the finals, to lose, the Celtics are your best chance. If you just want a competitive finals, you don't care who wins, and you want to root for Jimmy, you'll probably root for the Heat, whatever, The fact that it is the bubble Final Four again is making me lose my mind a little bit because it feels like it's like when the Heat beat the Sixers. I'm sorry, the Hawks beat the Sixers, and someone was like, they made it to the conference finals, they rebuilt, and they made it back to the conference finals before the Sixers could. And now it's the bubble Final Four again. These aren't even the same exact teams. They're different. Like the Lakers have Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell.
I was going to say, I think literally the entire Lakers roster is different besides Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
I was going to say, I think you're right. And I was going to say, someone was saying earlier, like, oh, we just need to dump Tobias and whatever. We talked about that for a little bit. We need to get him. I was like, there is no the Silver isn't making a call to Danny Ainge to be like, hey, send them 3 rotation players for an expiring contract and a heavily protected first. Like, by the way, the Lakers straight up did just beat the Warriors. Like, they kind of kicked their ass in that last game, and it wasn't competitive. Like, and I watched the game, and I can tell you how. They put a ton of pressure on the rim. They made the Warriors the Warriors had no rim protection. They were honestly defending their ass off that whole series. They had multiple guys who could create their own shot. Like, this turnaround from the Lakers is probably the most confusing thing that I've seen in quite some time. I know that they got a lot more talent. They got an injection of talent at the deadline and whatever, but like to make a run to the conference finals, them and the Heat are just like consistently blowing my mind with this shit.
Well, I mean, hey, I feel like you got to kind of credit Darvin Ham at least like a little bit for like the Lakers. Like, I mean, because I actually got a chance to see some of those games too, and I saw the same thing you did. There was like the rim pressure. I still don't understand how Steph Curry can destroy my team and then just absolutely fucking no show Lakers series when
Not like Russ in a few of those games, dude.
I don't know. I'm over it.
I do think at least part of the Steph suffering part in that series was the fact that he, as amazing as Steph is, he's never the guy that like completely carries the load in a way that he kind of did in the finals last year and kind of beat any allegations he's ever had against him for that little stretch. But like you could tell that it started to wear down on him because like guys were just getting blown by on defense and couldn't make fucking open shots. And like by the end of the series, I think he was just like, this is over. Like,
yeah. Well, where the fuck was that last year? Where was that quitting you last year, Steph Curry?
Thank you, Steph. One last time.
Well, yeah. God, the Lakers, they I know rich of me as a Celtics fan to complain about this, but they really do have the golden horseshoe up their fucking asshole. Like they are the fucking
you guys absolutely do too. But the thing about the Lakers that's so confusing to me, and the thing about the Heat that's so confusing to me is like I'm not exaggerating, we have never seen a turnaround like this in season into the playoffs. Ever. Yeah. This has never happened, a 7 and an 8 seed in the conference finals.
And by the way, it's happening twice at the same time.
That's what I'm saying. Is like the last time that an 8 seed got this far was the Knicks in 1999 when Patrick Ewing was injured. Like, and by the way, that first round series, it was when it was still best of 5. And they only had to win 3 games in the first round instead of 4, which makes it more likely to have upsets. So like this, and the fact that the Heat have only lost 3 games to this point, the Lakers have lost 4 games. Like, it's not like they're like competitive 7-game series that they're scraping through. Like, they're kind of just taking care of business. And like, I will say, I don't think Jimmy looked quite right post ankle injury. Maybe this time off will help him get ready. Like, what do you anticipate for game 1 is what I guess I should ask here.
So there's one of 2 things. Only 2 things are possible. Celtics, like basically what we just saw in game 7, 30-point, like just absolute trachea stomping march, or a Jimmy Butler 50-point masterpiece. Game 4, basically, with like some sort of bozo bonehead play by the Celtics down the stretch and Jimmy hitting some sort of insane prayer 3 to like steal game 1 or something like that. Like,
yeah. They did win game 1 in Boston last year. That would be the 3rd straight that you guys have blown game 1 outside of the first round.
I don't think it's possible.
I'm sorry.
I just don't think it's possible because the other thing people forget about the bubble series, Jimmy Butler was like bad that series. That was like a Bam series.
I was going to say that was he was like distributor that series. It was Hero and Bam and Dragic that he was playing more like playmaker defender role than he was like actually like he carried in the finals and in the Bucks series more.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and he like, so that was like different from like what we saw from Jimmy like last year, for example, like where that was more of the traditional playoff Jimmy Butler we've come to know. I think he's gonna have to try and do something more like that. And I don't even think they have the talent. Like they just Hero being out, like they have to play a 7-man rotation. Like the Celtics. The other thing is the Celtics like didn't really have Rob Williams at any point in any of these other series. Like he was hurt last year. He was hurt in the bubble. I think he is like demonic. Like I don't think Jimmy's gonna be ready for that. Like I like because he finally looks good again. They have all these extra guys. I don't know. I know it's a history and I know everyone wants to do this. I would be absolutely floored if this even went 7. I really think a sweep is on the table. I want it so bad.
So, all right, let's think about the lineup for a second, because who are the fucking Heat even starting right now? It's like Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Kevin Love. So
Caleb Martin, I think, starts for them.
I think he comes off the bench.
Does he go off the bench?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well,
I think he's been like their 6th man, but him and Lowry are the first 2 off the bench, if I remember correctly. Yeah. In the Sixers series, you could put Rob on PJ at the end, which you guys did and really worked in Game 6. In Game 7, not as much, but PJ just hit a few corner threes. Still mucked up the offense a little bit, at least. What are the matchups in this kind of series, I guess?
Rob on Bam.
So you put Rob on Bam, you have him, Rome, and then you have Horford on Kevin Love on the perimeter then?
Yeah, I mean, you could just go small this series. Yeah. You don't even need to, like,
do the double big thing.
Grant Williams could play in this series. Like, there just is not – the fact that they made Rob effective in a Joel Embiid series means – I think that means something, because, like, you just can't have him on there. And I don't know. Bam, I think, is more fraudulent than he was like 3 years ago. Like, I think that was like Bam's kind of high point.
I was gonna say, Bam was good in the Knicks series, but yeah, I mean, it's the Knicks. Like, it's a different team.
I don't know. I just don't think Jimmy. I mean, maybe Kyle Lowry. I mean, the Heat might go to their default option, which is just to like injure someone. Like, maybe they'll just like hit Jaylen Brown in the face, like now that he doesn't have the mask on, and he took that shot in Game 7. Like, they're gonna do something like that will happen. Like, but I don't know. I would be shocked if it would be the most jokerifying loss of I still can't believe they lost the bubble series. Like, I'm still mad about that. Like,
are you worried about the Spo versus Joe matchup? Because I have been saying the last 2 days, one, I don't think that I think the talent gap's too large for the coaching matchup to really matter. Yeah. But 2, I was like, yeah, Joe Mazzulla looks like a great coach today, because Jason Tatum scored like 70 points in the last 6 quarters of the fucking series. And like, if Joel Embiid came out and scored 50, I'm sure Doc would look like a fucking genius today too. Like, yeah. That's how it happens in the playoffs sometimes. Sometimes guys get like, as great of a coach as Spo is, Jimmy Butler has one of the greatest playoff games we've ever seen against the Bucks, and that makes Spo look even smarter. Like, you're going to have some of those performances where and like I said, Jimmy not really being like first round Jimmy, if he is able to be healthy in this series, I think the Heat have a shot to steal probably 2 games. And I think that, maybe there is some PTSD flare up, and I do think that the Sixers were a better team than the Heat this year. I think that the Heat obviously have the coaching advantage. In the playoffs, they might have the best player advantage on any given night, even though Jimmy, another thing that is forgotten about Jimmy versus the Celtics in the playoffs is that he also has terrible games sometimes. Where like last year, he had like an 8-point game in that series, I believe. And he had like another one where he had like 14 or whatever. But then he'll score 44 and it will all be forgotten. So like, the consistency and the health of Jimmy is obviously the most important part of this. I don't think that Jimmy's afraid of anyone or anything in the playoffs. I think that is certainly going to be. I mean, Game 1 to me proves if the Heat come out and win Game 1, I'm in for this. Might be a competitive series. If you guys come out and just mollywop them and it's just that's it, like that's kind of how I pictured the series to go. I also thought they would handle the Sixers in 6 though. So.
Again, though, the Sixers were a good team. Like I keep coming back to that, and I feel like I think people were sleeping on how good of a team the Sixers were. Like those games turned into.
I was.
well, those games turned into defensive struggles down the stretch. Like everyone was like saying about how like neither team could hit a shot. I think that's like by design. I think both defenses were playing really fucking well. And kind of just leaving guys. I mean, it turned into a series where guys were shooting open threes because like that's like what you had to do. You just had to pick who was taking those threes for you, Like, so I just don't think the Heat have the talent for that. Like, and they've never had the talent, but like they're not even going to have Tyler Hero. Like Duncan Robinson is going to have to guard anytime he's on the floor, he's going to have to guard either one of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Malcolm Brogdon, or Marcus Smart. And that's not going to go well. Like not a lot of teams have that. Like it's one thing if that's, I don't know, Deuce McBride or fucking, RJ
Barrett.
Isaac Oro.
Sure. Yeah.
No, they didn't even play him. I don't know. Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen,
Sure.
These guys are like, I don't know. These guys are totally different. I think this is a completely different series. And, I mean, unless Joe Mazzulla, which by the way, this is totally possible, says the only person allowed to bring it up the floor is Jaylen Brown, then this that's the only way the Heat have a chance in this series.
Jalen's handle was looking a little Niang in the second quarter yesterday. By the way, why I thought the Sixers were going to win this game was I was like, Niang had a play where he got into Jalen's handle. Jalen dribbled it off his foot. They had like so many little hustle plays and little marginal plays that I felt like they didn't have early in the season. Same reason why I thought they were going to win Game 6. The thing is, I mean, really, what in the same way that Jimmy matters, like, what version of Jason Tatum do we get? Because there were probably 3 games in this series where Jason Tatum was, let's say 2.5 games. 2.5 games, Jason Tatum was the best player on the court if you combine the whole series. And then there were games where you were like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I literally had said before Game 7, there was the clips of the bubble going around where Tatum was like so fluid and like looked just like much more mobile. And then we saw some of that in Game 7, but like the variance from game to game with Jason Tatum has been very confusing to me too, because I know that you've said he's been like that all year and he's kind of had these like slumps or whatever, but like, this is a series where he needs to be very obviously the best player from the jump the whole series in order for it to matter. And honestly, I think that the talent is good enough around him to make it not really matter like it did at times during the Sixers series. But it will be interesting because the only way you guys have a shot to win the finals, I think, is if Tatum has like a takeover performances like he did yesterday in Game 7.
Yeah. I also think that's like more possible because like Jason Tatum will be able to get to the rim against these two teams. I mean, I know Bam is.
That's true. I mean, there was like a 3 or 4 game stretch where Joel was just shutting off the rim, and it was.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to see anyone like Joel. I mean, maybe Anthony Davis. I would be shocked.
That would be different. Yeah.
Got through the Nuggets, but like if it's Jokic, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to be more of a. That series would be very interesting just in terms of a coaching chess match. That's one where Joe Mazzulla might get pantsed because like the Nuggets kind of do have talent and both of these teams are so deep with so many different styles to throw out there that probably will devolve into like some sort of chess match where like, do you have Aaron Gordon on Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown? Like, can you get away with like, do you put KCP on Malcolm Brogdon or do you like try it with Marcus Smart and see what happens? Like stuff like that will come into it more. Like, can Rob play off of Michael Porter Jr.? Shit like that is going to like come into things. So, but I just think that with this series, I guess just to reiterate what we've been saying, I just think the talent gap is like probably the most severe talent gap we've had in the conference finals ever, like period. Like in the bubble series, Daniel
probably since what you guys played the LeBron Cavs in 2016 or 2017, whenever that was.
But even that went to 7, and the Celtics like won Game 1 by like 20 points.
No, not the Hospital Celtics series.
Oh, what do you mean?
The LeBron Cavs. The LeBron Cavs before you guys had Tatum and Brown as like you're the main guy. Like it was like Isaiah Thomas, but he was injured.
After Kelly Olynyk dispatched the Warriors in Game 7, or the Wizards in Game 7.
Yes, that was 2017 conference finals, I think. And that Cavs team was really fucking good. It was like That was better than the 2016 team, if I remember correctly. That was probably the last time that we've had a talent gap like this in the conference finals.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
the team is Jimmy Butler.
I know. Everyone wants to say. I mean, look. Maybe we can clip this like when Game 7 is happening, and I'm in the newspaper, and it's like local podcast host. Police negotiator takes in local podcast host peacefully. But like, I would be, even for the Celtics, and I'm pretty pessimistic about the Celtics. I was pessimistic about them on, even with rat mode, even with, if the Celtics play identically to how bad they played last year in the conference finals, it will still be over in 5. That is how different these teams are. Like,
famous last words.
Now, I feel very confident.
Bucks fan 3 weeks ago. Jason Tatum has had his neck sliced.
Yeah, they can't keep shooting like this forever.
55% from 3 for the whole series.
I mean, I guess if they do shoot 58% from 3 like they did against the Bucks, we might be in trouble.
Sure.
Like percent. Like,
yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. So, all right. So that's just insane. All right, what was I gonna say? Okay, so Nuggets, Lakers. I don't know, dude. Like, I kind of think that this comes down to, like, does Jokic, like, do the Lakers have an answer for Jokic? Because first off, I don't really think anyone's gonna have an answer for Jokic in these in these last 2 series. I think that it is a very unique matchup for a lot of teams. I know everyone keeps saying, "Oh, well, we'll just put Anthony Davis on him," and that's not how it works. Like, Jokic, they're going to run actions for Jokic away from the rim to get Anthony Davis away from the rim. They'll use Jokic like he's a guard, where they're running screens and he can get the ball in his spots. He'll bring the ball up sometimes to get Anthony Davis away from the rim. He'll post up at the top of the key to get Anthony Davis away from the rim, and then have back cut so that anyone can get to the rim anytime they fucking want. I do think that you have to kind of put, that's the rock in the hard place here for the Lakers in this matchup, because you have to put Anthony Davis on Jokic, because there's no one else that is even close to Jokic's size. That as we saw in the Sun series, this was the most frustrating thing with me with Embiid yesterday, was early in the game, he was getting great post position, and he was like under the basket, and he would seal his guy, and he would get the ball, and he would hesitate, and then a double team would get there, and he would end up kicking it out to a shooter. Jokic, throughout these playoffs, has been very quick with his decisions. If he gets the ball in there, he's going right up for the shot. He's either going to get the foul or he's going to get the bucket. And that is something that the Lakers are going to have to try to figure out throughout the course of this series. Everyone's answer to this ever has been, we put PJ Tucker on Jokic, and then we let Joel roam off of Aaron Gordon, and we put him near the rim. The Lakers will certainly try that with like Jared Vanderbilt at the beginning of this series. They'll probably put AD, because he has the size, on the perimeter on Jokic, and then they will put Jared Vanderbilt near the rim, and they will hope that he can protect the rim from back cuts, from everything that the Nuggets will run to try to get more looks at the rim. But at the same time, we just saw in the last series, Jared Vanderbilt on offense is going to cause problems for your spacing. In the same way that, as good as PJ Tucker was yesterday, caused problems for the Sixers spacing at times in this series, because they're willing to live with that corner 3, and they're willing to live with whatever outcome comes out of that. They had, last second, they changed it to a mostly guard and spacing focused lineup in that series, and they ran the Warriors off the court. The one advantage I do think the Lakers can create here from an offensive standpoint is exactly what we talked about in the Warriors series, which is, I don't really think they're going to have enough like perimeter operators in Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell to like pull Jokic out of the paint and try to do what the Warriors have always done to him, which is just like shoot a ton of threes and make it so that he has to defend in space and shit. But the rim pressure thing will be the one thing that they could have an advantage of in this series. Now, the Nuggets perimeter defenders are way better than they've ever been with Jokic, and we saw some differences, and it's part of the reason why I immediately changed my mind about the Suns and was like, The Suns actually, it's not a great matchup for the Suns because the Suns are just going to take a ton of mid-range jumpers. They're not going to get to the rim. They're not going to get to the line. And that's what the Lakers do well. The Lakers have a ton of guys who get downhill, a ton of guys who can draw fouls, and a ton of guys that will honestly just try to frustrate Jokic as much as possible, because it's basically like, it's even if it's not the most effective offense, you're going to want to try to tire out Jokic throughout the course of the game and make him involved in a ton of the actions, make him try to oppose shots at the rim, make him try to get into foul trouble, because that's really your only shot of ever slowing down the Nuggets, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know. I think similar to what we were just talking about on the other side of the bracket. I just think this team was a low seed for a reason. I know they're like everyone.
Sam, they have the number one defense in the NBA since the trade deadline, though. Like, they have a really good defense.
I mean, they do, but like
you're just in denial.
They have 7 players, and like 2 of them are Rui Hachimura and Lonnie Walker. Like I'm sorry, like I can't believe that can continue. Like, if they get away with that is demonic. That is demonic blood magic again. And we've got to put Darvin Ham in the SPO category, because like that. I don't know. I famously said the Lakers were drawing dead against the Warriors. I'm extremely owned. I believed in Steph too much. So that's congratulations to LeBron James, the greatest player of his generation. That's over. Bye-bye, Warriors fans. Bye-bye. That's all done. Should have won that series if you were a serious team, but unfortunately, no. I can't believe the Warriors no-showed that fucking series. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I am just in denial that the Lakers are good. It goes against everything I've ever seen about the NBA. Like, and unless Adam Silver would have to have a historic performance here. Like,
okay, so I mean, I guarantee you Adam Silver wants to see the Lakers in the finals. He would be, oh my God, if he got the Lakers Celtics finals for the most titles ever, LeBron versus Tatum isn't really a marketable star yet, but he might get there. Like an American 2, 3, 4 American stars potentially. Like, I guarantee you Adam Silver is pulling for that. Having said all that, I do think the Nuggets are just the better team. I don't think they're going to – my biggest thing about this is I just don't think the Nuggets are going to lose at home. And, like, in the Western Conference Finals, they're going to have that advantage again. They're probably going to win this series in 6. Like, I think it probably goes first 2 games go towards the Nuggets because they're playing them at home. And Nuggets game 1, when you're not used to that altitude, that's like playing the 96 Bulls, dude. Like, they're going to run teams up and down the court. They're going to try to, like make teams tired, and they're going to be crazy. I guarantee you they come out crazy on Tuesday night, and they're just scoring up and down the court, making the Lakers really work. I think they're going to win the first 2 games. I think the Lakers could easily win the next 2 games, very similar to how we just saw the Suns. And then the Nuggets get it right at home in game 5, and then they win game 6 in LA. The thing that I think about going, like, the one part where the Lake, like we talk about, the Lakers don't have that many good players. Like, outside of the Nuggets top 6, I really don't think they have really that many good players. It's just like on any given night, Christian Braun and Jeff Green can be playable. But they could always go to 7 guys. I think that's probably what's going to happen in these series. A lot of the times they go to 7, maybe 8 guys with some spot minutes. But I think the Nuggets have the best player in the series with the way that Jokic is playing right now. I think that the role players I trust a little bit more. A big Jamal Murray series for sure, because the Lakers and the Nuggets have very different, like, weirdly, I know that Jokic isn't like an on-ball. He's not like an on-ball heliocentric guy, and he does spread the ball around a ton. But, like, weirdly enough, the Lakers tend to run offense with more guys. Like, they let Dennis Schroeder run offense sometimes. They let D'Angelo Russell run offense. Austin Reeves, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. Everything is going to be going through that 2-man game with the Nuggets with Jokic and Murray. And this is, once again, Murray, who's another guy who's been very up and down. When he's on, he looks amazing. When he's down, it can get pretty brutal, especially when he's shooting really poorly in these games. He's the big swing piece for me in this series in terms of it's him and can you survive with Jared Vanderbilt on the court offensively for the Lakers? Those are the two big swing pieces for me. I know that Anthony Davis and Jokic are going to show up for these series offensively, at least I think. And I think that, I don't know, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. I'm very excited to see Jokic versus AD. I kind of think that matchup isn't going to go the way that people think it is, but we'll see. And then
also, you got to think about the altitude and how the effect that's going to have on a guy who just had a concussion. Sorry, never mind. He didn't have a concussion. He was fine. He was chilling. It'll be fine.
By the way, on the Patreon episode last week when we talked about this, I mistakenly didn't recognize that Joel Embiid did have a concussion when he got hit in the face. He was diagnosed with a concussion and cleared from the protocols, which, once again, why are they having him do TV interviews in a bright stadium with TV lights on him after the game? Like, the protocol for the NBA needs to get better, and I genuinely think maybe Anthony Davis dodged a bullet and those were just precautions, but like I think that there's something a little bit deeper here, and I think that they need to be real careful about players taking shots to the face and then having them, not fly on planes and like do things that you're just not supposed to do when you have a concussion. And like Joel couldn't look at screens and like, yeah, the NBA needs to be better about that shit than they have been for sure. All right. We started to talk about it, then we got completely off track with the coach shit. But Monty Williams was fired. All these Coach of the Year candidates keep getting fired. I kind of am at the point where I'm like, so part of this is new ownership with the Suns. The Bucks also brought in a new owner, but I don't really think that had anything to do with it. He's a minority owner, Jim Haslam. No. Part of it is part of it is just like Nick Nurse, you reach the end of your road, whatever. But like a lot of these times, I feel like most of these coaches, and Doc could be the next one, are just getting thrown under the bus due to either one of two things: poor roster construction with like shitty lack of depth, whether that's either from the general manager or the owner, and then in addition to that, the fact that the stars on those teams just haven't performed really in big situations. And the coaches are taking the fall in these situations a lot of the time. Now, every situation is unique, every situation, but I just feel like, and there are some I think you can make the argument for, like Monty Williams got crushed in 2 straight elimination games. I get it. Like, I understand why they fired him. But I just feel like we've gone a little bit too far with like, just fire the coach. Whatever. like, just get rid of the coach. Everything's going to be fine. And I'm like, we have league-wide parity right now. Front offices are not being held accountable for this shit. Star players are not being held accountable. And it's just easy to replace the coach. So just get rid of the coach and bring in a new coach.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, unfortunately, there is like, I don't know. There's a little bit of both, because I also do think that like guys do kind of get sick of their coaches too. Like if you like lose the respect of the locker room, it's just kind of the thing of the NBA. If you don't have a coach who's like an icon who has like that gravitas and like their own, I hate to use this word, but their own like built-in brand of being like a institutional coach, like you are just kind of replaceable at that point. Like, did anyone like, I'm not shocked that that the Lakers are back in the conference finals after firing Frank Vogel. Like, he got a raw deal, but like at the same time, what Joe Mazzulla is doing proves that like coaching is like a mostly replacement level. Like, it only matters in like very close series, or if you have Eric Spoelstra. Those are like the two instances. Is like coaching only really matters if you've got like it really matters when you're starting out and you have like a bad team and you want to make your bad team into a competitive team. Like, I think that's how Brad Stevens got started. I think we've seen Mike Brown did a very good job with his team this year. I think we've seen to a lesser extent Will Hardy out in Utah. Like, we've seen these teams kind of do that stuff. Bud has his whole shtick with how to like win games in the regular season. But I think just like for the most part, like it sucks for coaches. Like, and I think it's bad that these guys just kind of get like turned out. But like, it's also like, well, are these guys like necessarily that much better than like, the 30 other coaches who are waiting for a chance?
It's like Bo and everyone else, basically.
Yeah. Like, I just don't think like nobody stays in a job. Like, who has the next most prestige after Eric Spoelstra left in the league? Like Pop, not Pop notwithstanding, because he's like circling the drain, but it's like Ty Lue or Doc Rivers, I think, are like the next two guys.
Kerr, and then Ty Lue.
Okay.
Yeah. But like and now the Suns are talking about targeting Ty Lue, who, by the way, Clippers fans were calling for his head all year. And Sixers fans, including me, at the beginning of the season, were like, fire Doc Rivers. Like, clearly doesn't have the locker room. Like, it is the first. All I'm saying here is I feel like it's like it has become, and I am guilty of it. Everyone is guilty of it at a certain point, especially with when their team is underperforming in big moments, of just being completely reactionary and just being like, yeah, get rid of the coach. Like, I do think
I didn't like Ime for like the first half of last year.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, you guys were 500 and yeah.
And he was a great basketball coach. Not good at other things.
Sure.
But yeah.
And I don't know. I do kind of think that like one of the competitive advantage. I think Will said this. Someone said it to me. Like the market inefficiency with coaching is literally just don't hire an idiot, and that's what the Heat did with Spo.
Yeah,
like, they were like, oh, we just didn't hire an idiot. No,
well, it's like Spo was like the tape grinding fucking nerd for Pat Riley.
Sure.
Who just got hired. And like, by the way, people were like saying Spo was the one like holding those Heat teams back. And like
in the early days, yeah.
And that because he was like the young, fresh-faced coach, and it's like that just like was, not true. Like, because he was an unknown, And
sure.
I've always said like it's not a good idea to hire these, retread coaches that are coming back through.
Yeah.
Like,
all of these guys that got fired were, by the way, like they won champion, like Bud won a championship, but he was a retread. Monty got to the finals. He was a retread. Like these, like Nick Nurse was not, but like most of these guys in this cycle have been retread coaches.
And they like as that type of coach ever gone anywhere and like won anything? I guess Bud, but like outside of that, has any other coach ever won anything?
I've heard Sixers fans say we should get Bud, and I'm like, Bud's the same. Like Bud has a little bit more like X's and O's dorky stuff, but everything that drives you insane, like Monty and Bud, both of the things that do, with Bud, it's the lack of adjustments and in-game awareness, and that's what people hate about Doc. Bud does the same shit. With Monty, it's the rotations and the all bench lineups. He does the same shit as Doc does. So like all these coaches to a certain extent are pretty similar. So I understand why they are siphoned in and out of the jobs. But it does feel like it's just the first thing to do is just like get rid of this coach immediately instead of like ever try. Like I heard people saying like, well, maybe the Suns could keep DeAndre Ayton now because he hated Monty Williams and they didn't get along. And then I'm like, I don't think that Monty Williams is the reason why DeAndre Ayton sucked. Like I think DeAndre Ayton is just doesn't really give a shit. It seems like.
No, DeAndre Ayton is locked in on hitting Diamond 3 this season. So getting the gold skin for his assault rifle in Call of Duty, like
he's probably enjoying the hell out of this week.
Yeah, he's getting double XP weekend.
Let's go. Yeah. So, but yeah, the whole thing on this, the coaching thing, like I get it, but it does feel like it's gotten a little bit out of hand. And back to the like I don't know how you could have watched, and I of all these firings, weirdly enough, I think that the one I understand the most is the best coach, and that's Bud.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that one makes the most sense to me. Yeah,
and like, look, I know his brother passed away, it was terrible, but like watching that Buck series, his lack of just like preparedness, awareness of like, why aren't they calling timeouts? Why are they challenging this? Why are they doing that? Like even before everything happened, like it was startling how little it felt like he really had an impact during those games. And now, like, look, like I said, Sixers coach next year, we're going to trade Tobias for Julius Randle. We're going to get Coach Bud in here. Joel's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. And then we're going to fucking lose in the first round to the Orlando Magic next year. Follow Big Caro and one of the Thompson twins, and let's go. But
Chris Paul leading the way.
That's right. Oh, that was the other thing people said for a Harden sign-in trade, because there was speaking of the Suns, there was a rumor that the other team that Harden, which by the way, I've been saying, if you're James Harden and you want to still go, you want to live somewhere that's like pretty cool and like be close to LA and Vegas, and like you're gonna have a chance at contending still, go play for the Suns, dude. You would be like, they could use his playmaking, they could use his 3-point volume, and he's already played with Kevin Durant. He knows what it's like to play with Kevin Durant. Like,
yeah.
I kind of think that makes more sense than Houston, but he clearly doesn't really care about that. But that was the one thing, and they were like, would the Sixers do a Chris Paul for James Harden sign and trade? And I was like, oof. I'd consider it. I mean, I think I would, because it's just like, what are your other options? If we can't get off the Tobias contract, we don't have a road to getting cap space. So you might as well just take on Chris Paul in his last year. And if he sucks, trade him at the deadline as an expiring.
Also, Chris Paul is like a famous asshole, and like him being slighted, he will be able to harness his resentment again into like not like an all-star season or anything like that, but just like a return to like relevance. Like,
sure. Yeah. Like just like he'll find a new role to be effective just to piss people off. Like,
yeah, he would honestly, I think he could like really activate Embiid. Like if like he just got the keys to the car. Like,
yeah, I mean,
Maxey
would just want him to be he would be a worse version, but like, yeah, I did say I think it would be good for Maxey's development, and I think that he would help Embiid, but you would still have the ceiling of a first round, second round team. Like you're not going anywhere with a 39-year-old Chris Paul. Like it's just not like 38, 39. Like he's him and PJ Tucker. You'd have two guys almost 40 starting in your lineup.
Don't tell them what they can't do. Gen X are our greatest. They're our greatest generation. They would throw on Pearl Jam and take the Sixers to the promised land.
I think he's millennial.
Is he?
I mean, 38. Like I'm 33 and I'm millennial. So
no, those guys are way older than me.
They're 5 years older than us.
They're 5 years older than me.
I was gonna say that not really that much at all, but yeah, Jesus Christ, dude.
We're doing age gap discourse on ourselves and NBA stars.
Let's go.
Can a 33-year-old root for a 38-year-old?
Also, apparently Chris Paul 3 years ago, when Morey left Houston, so the original trade, Windhorst reported this later, the original trade that was supposed to happen was Horford and the first round pick for Chris Paul. And then it turned into Danny Green, because they got Danny Green in another trade, the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the Sixers were going to send Horford in the first round pick for Chris Paul. And last second, not last second, I shouldn't say that. They went to Chris Paul and they said, where do you want us to trade you? And he said, I don't want to go to Philly, because he apparently doesn't like Doc or Morey. Because, like he gets along with Doc now, like they golf together and shit. Of course, classic Doc. But like he didn't want to relive those days, basically. And so he chose to go to Phoenix to be closer to his family, and he wanted to play with Booker and blah, blah, blah. And he had a relationship with Monty because Monty used to coach him. So it was funny. I was like, we could relive that 3 years later when Chris Paul is basically fully washed. and relive those glory days. That would have, by the way, been a grand slam trade for us at the time, like to get that version of Chris Paul, play him with Embiid.
Oh my God. He might have saved Ben Simmons.
That's what I literally had the same thought. Like, you take the ball out of Ben Simmons' hands and you turn him in more of like an off-ball threat type guy. Like that, those teams really, like, we almost traded for Kyle Lowry that year too because we just needed a point guard.
He either would have saved Ben Simmons or broken him earlier, so you could have gotten off of him. Could have gotten the information sooner. Like those are the two options.
Yeah. Chris just made Ben cry again.
Yeah, Ben had to leave the thing. We're trading him for Tyrese Halliburton. So,
oh, unfortunate. So unfortunate, man. That was the other thing, is that in retrospect, man, I really would have preferred. Look, Harden won us 2 games in this series. He won us a game in the Heat series last year. He did some good things for us, but man, I would have really preferred to take Tyrese Halliburton. Now I would be like sitting here like, we'll be fine. Don't worry about it. We got Tyrese and Embiid. Oh man, that would have been such, and the Kings would have been in such shit. Oh man, that would have been the funniest possible. Like those are usually the kind of things that happen. But
yeah.
Last thing before we get out of here, I don't know if you heard about this, but Ja Morant is in the news again.
You guys heard about this? You hearing this? Ja Morant.
Ja Morant.
He's in the news. He's in the news again. Bill Maher intro. I mean, I don't know. I took some shit on Twitter for like asking like how the league is gonna justify the suspension, and everyone was like, oh, there's morality clauses, contract detrimental. Like, look, I get all that shit, but like, I'm just telling you the optics of like what players are seeing. I think the Gilbert Arenas rule is that you have to have your firearm registered. So It seems like Ja probably did not have that firearm registered, and that's how they're going to get him. But it is something. This is very different from the one in the during the season, because that was in a club on the road. The gun was, either someone the league had to investigate whether it was ever on a team plane or anything like that. There's all this other stuff. That this is something happening in the off season in your friend's car. You are allowed to do that. Like, what the league is really going after him for is for, you have this whole song and dance and rehabilitate. You have the Jalen Rose thing. You have the interview. Like, I did 96 hours at a rehab. I'm totally cured, completely cured.
3 days didn't work.
Yeah, I'm completely cured. And then you do this again, showing that you're not taking it seriously. And like, let's be clear, that's what the league is really going after. That's what the contract did detrimental to the team. They're going to get him on the clause or whatever. It's really about making the team and everybody like look stupid. This is about the optics of this situation. Sure. Because if they actually cared about it, it would have the teenager getting punched and them running up on the store clerk in the mall would have been these incidents where he was getting suspended, not the being with your friend in the car with a gun.
Yeah,
like that. I'm sorry, that is like the difference here is the timing and where that happened and the optics of what it looks
also
like.
This one was just kind of funny. They were just sitting in a driveway. Like, they weren't even driving the car. They were literally just like sitting in a driveway playing music, and he just like I get why the league feels like they need to protect themselves and the Grizzlies and blah blah blah. I feel like first off, I feel like this is going to end really poorly for Ja.
Yeah,
like it just feels like it's like the fact that he keeps doing it,
incredibly fucking stupid. Like, incredibly fucking stupid on his part. Like, you've got to know you're on thin ice, bro. Like, please. Like,
he keeps making stupid decisions.
Yeah,
but at the same time, like, no matter how you feel about all that shit, like, I've literally been called Second Amendment trill in the Discord by people for defending him in the past for being like, look, dude, like, if it's his gun and he has a gun, like, he's allowed to have a gun. Like, that's just kind of how it is. Like,
that's how it is. I'm sorry. Like, that's the rules in America.
It's not if I agree with the Second Amendment or not. It's that is what the reality is in America. And Wolf put it perfectly. He said, The reason why this is a big deal is because they chose Ja as the TikTok superstar that they wanted to advertise to kids with short attention spans to get into the NBA. He said if Thad Young was on Instagram Live flashing his guns, no one would give a fuck. It is the fact that he is this marketable star that's like a big money maker for the NBA, and the fact that he's one of the young up and rising stars and blah blah blah, that they really do care that much about it. And I feel like it's his career's headed in the wrong direction because he can't seem to just like not stop doing it for sure. But at the same time, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to act like this is like the biggest deal in the world.
I just can't take this serious. This particular one as seriously.
Yes.
When it's like, I know you were involved in a police investigation to cover 2 other incidents.
Sure.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like where someone was actually menaced or hurt.
Yes.
Just no one was menaced or hurt in this situation, like at all. Like you know, like so that's the big difference to me. Like this particular fight is about optics and about timing. You know, like again, if I honestly don't think the league would care if this were a lot of stars, if they had not just had a giant, like 2-month-long investigation where he was in the news cycle while the Grizzlies were bad and he was away from the team, and he has to, you know, talk to Jalen Rose and be like, oh, like I've made a mistake, you know, like that's what this is really about, is about like showing that, you know, he didn't mean it. Is basically like what that's what the league is pissed about. Like
exactly.
It's not actually about what's happening, because if it was actually about what's happening, there would have been way harsher punishments
from the
when
jump.
He was fucking punching a teenager allegedly. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you read that Washington Post article. That was way more alarming than anything going on in this situation.
It inspired one of the greatest Sam Sheehan display names of all times.
Yeah.
Litigation against teens.
Yeah, litigation. We need to litigate against the teens. What if a teenager was menacing Ja Morant? We must allow. Look, sometimes you've got to sue a teenager. Like, you just got to do it.
You got to do it, dude. You absolutely have to do it sometimes. Yeah. Oh my God. All right. I have people tagging me in this post that is not slop, but I'm being asked, is this slop? Shout out to Drew Peltzman for tweeting me, tagging me in this, saying, is this slop? There was a clip yesterday of Joel going around, which, by the way, I thought Joel handled the press conference yesterday pretty terribly. I felt like, a lot of his
quote about him and James was brutal.
Okay, so that was the clip, but it was in defense of Joel a little bit. It was taken out of context what he was saying. He was basically saying, I need to be better. I will get better. James needs to be better. We all need to get better. But at the end of the day, this is all about 5-on-5. This is about the team always looking for different ways to get better and me leading them to that and blah, blah, blah. It was taken a little bit out of context. It happens a lot with Embiid quotes because they go viral because he's one of the only stars that actually says shit. Like, he's not a boring star. We talked about this before. Yeah, he's not a boring star.
Yeah, we talked about how the worst thing you can do as an NBA player is be interesting. If you're an active NBA player, you need to be as boring as possible. You need to be Jason Tatum and just say like platitudes, absurdities, like
respectfully,
be as boring as possible.
That was the spiciest thing he's ever said. Respectfully, I'm one of the best basketball players alive.
Yeah, and that's something that like every other NBA player will say after it. So
and it's also funny because it's just like an objective fact. You're one of the 20 best players. Well, I mean, even better for him, like in the NBA. Like you're one of the 40 best players in the NBA, Jason Tatum. Right. After he scored 51 points on the team yesterday. But so he goes, basically that quote was the one that Dame tweeted and said, huh? Like, what are you talking? Like, what do you mean by this essentially? And then someone tweeted at him and said, don't fall for the short media snippets. Here's the full interview where he said this. And then he said, I saw the full and I love Embiid. I also love their roster. Did I miss or did you? Basketball talk is not personal. So I don't deem that as slop because I will never believe that Damian Lillard will ever try to leave the Portland Trail Blazers.
That talk about going from 0 to 60 in terms of grind. That would be one of he would get grind whiplash for.
Oh my God, going from the Blazers to the Sixers, dude.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest grind whiplashes of all time.
It is weird to me that people keep saying that the Nets are the team that he wants to go to, which, like, I guess he would want to go to the Nets because he'd still be the guy. And that's the other thing about Embiid, and I've talked about this with a lot of people, is like Embiid and Dame and all these guys are so good that they can't see themselves in the context of not being the guy. Like, they've always been the guy, and they've won MVPs, and Dame's got to the conference finals and been an all-star, all-NBA, first team, whatever. Like, there are levels to this that, like, yes, maybe Joel Embiid shouldn't have the ball as much as he does, but at the end of the day, he's still one of the best players in the league, so he's probably going to. So, like, it's hard to, like, envision a scenario in which any of these guys see themselves as second guys. If anything, they would see it like a KD Steph situation where, like, they view each other as, like, equals, essentially. And, like, you have to be, it's like a 50-50 thing where, like, I guess if Dame were to get traded, which I still don't think is going to happen, I still think, I mean, I'm a truther. You're the Chicago Bulls truther. I'm the Portland Trailblazers truther. That the
1.8%, the number of God.
Let's go. The Blazers have much better odds. They have, like, the 5th best odds, and we'll see tomorrow night if they get the number 1 pick. But I'm convinced they're going to get it, and then that team immediately becomes fucking stacked if they do. If they get Victor Wembanyama, I just think about their starting 5. Like, they might trade Anthony Simons. They could still trade for Mikal Bridges in this scenario. And then your starting 5 next year could be like Dame, Sharp, Grant, maybe Mikal Bridges, and Victor Wembanyama. Like, they're immediately, like, in the championship conversation.
Yeah.
That would be pretty incredible. Or even if you keep Simons, like, you could maneuver some other shit. Like, man, if there's one team that could make the leap to championship contender next year, it's that team if they get Victor tomorrow. Well, we'll learn if they do or not. Last thing, if you're still on here, I'll be doing multiple playbacks this week on there for streams. I'll be doing the draft lottery. I'll also probably do an Eastern Conference one later in the week. And then also I'm going to do about a week from now, I'll have more information on this. It's actually in a few days. It's on Friday and Sunday. I will be doing the EuroLeague finals. So I don't really follow the EuroLeague, but they were like, we'll pay you to do this. So I'm doing it. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be giving out some passes. So follow me on social media and on Patreon and all that shit. And check it out in the Discord if you're part of the Uniball Patreon already, so that you can find out more information about that. I'll be posting all about it all week. And we'll be doing both the Final Four on Friday and then on Sunday as well. So anything else you want to say, Sam, before we get out of here?
So just remember, when Jeffrey Epstein wanted to start his organization, he bought real estate in Miami. Just something that is a fact. I'm not saying anything else about it. I'm just saying that he set up shop in Miami for his stuff. So just something to remember.
Interesting. Very interesting fact.
Yeah, it's just an objective fact I'd like everyone to remember. So,
all right. So, yeah. So anyway, go Heat.
God damn it.
Oh, Jesus.